Happy having a fantastic week. I hope you're having a fantastic Wednesday. So it is kind of the middle of the week, right? Like the middle of the week slump or like the Wednesday kind of, hump in the week. So that is why I'm coming to you live for our caffeine and coffee break with Kristin. We are going to be talking about one quick Jeep tip together while we kind of get our caffeine and coffee break on together today. And we're going to do our Jeep break as well. So I'm going to jump right in and get started for today. So, welcome to a cup of coffee with Kristin. We are going to be focused on one super quick Jeep tip that we can work through together, basically on a quick coffee break on this Wednesday. So, while you're jumping on here, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. I love to know what state you are tuning in from. So, let me know where you are watching from as you jump on here with me today for our cup of coffee with Kristin. And don't forget, mark your calendar. Every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, we jump right in here together. Oh, I love seeing ladies jump on. We got Wiley, Texas. I love it. All right, ladies. So for today, I try to keep these coffee breaks super quick, like you would your coffee break at work. So you can take a little bit of time to jump on here and talk Jeeps and kind of get your caffeine fix on as well. So welcome to Cup of Coffee with Kristin. Oh, we got Georgia in the house. I love it. All right, so I know a lot of you ladies saw this yesterday. I asked a fun question, and you amazing ladies jumped in and answered. I loved your answers. They ranged all over the board. They were awesome. It was so much fun. And I love getting to interact and see what you amazing ladies have to say. So, on our Facebook page, I put up a post and I asked you, how often do you wash or clean your Jeep? So, again, this is no judgment. We are jumping in to share some tips on some ways you can help to maintain and keep your Jeep lasting longer because we all want our Jeep to run as good as it can for as long as it can. And there are little things that we can do to help to prolong that so we get that life out of our Jeep. So I loved getting to see the feedback. I loved getting to see the answers on here. It was so much fun. So as we continue moving forward, I wanted to share with you a thought for today that came up. So I had a reason in my madness, right? So I specifically posted that because I wanted to see how often you ladies are cleaning your Jeep, what your thoughts are on that. Again, it ranged all over the board. It was awesome. But I asked that for a specific reason so that we could jump into this together today. So if you are new on here, hello and welcome. I am Kristin DeLibra from LadyJeepers.com. And I help Lady Jeepers, so women who own Jeeps, to safely trail ride, build their Jeep so that they can go out there and have adventures without fear. So important. You feel confident as you're doing it. So, why is washing and cleaning your Jeep important? Right? Some of us might be like, it's a lot of work. Is it really that crucially important? I love how my Jeep looks dirty. You can tell I take it out and enjoy it. All of those are super valid. All of those are awesome. But what I want to talk about today is this is just one quick maintenance tip that can help you and your Jeep to get a longer lifetime out of your Jeep and your parts. That's really what it is. The parts and the pieces that are underneath your Jeep that help to keep it driving. So, when we talk about that, after a weekend of fun or trail riding, washing your Jeep can feel like a chore, right? Especially if you go through a lot of mud, if you get really dirty. It's a lot of work once you get home to really thoroughly clean your Jeep. I totally get it. And there are times I get home and I'm tired. I'm like, the last thing I want to do is clean my Jeep. Oh, this is going to be no fun. But if we get to go out and enjoy it, we definitely need to put a little bit of time in once we get home. It's kind of our way of showing appreciation for our Jeep, but also it is going to help those important components um, to be able to have a longer lifetime. And that is really what is so important. Um, Oops, I did not mean to pin that message. I'm so sorry, ladies. Okay. Uh, so there's reasoning for it, right? Even though it's work, but it's kind of that trade off of having something super awesome that we get to go play with and have a good time. Then we have to do this homework when we get home just a little bit. So we have to get out there and wash our Jeep. And I do recommend, I'm going to share with you, ladies. I know we've gone in depth before on cleaning your Jeep. We're putting together a full detailing class that's going to be coming up that will go over how to really detail your Jeep. What are the best products to use? There are things you can do before you go out to trail ride that are going to help to make the cleanup easier. So we're not going to go into all of that today, but we do have a class coming up on that to share tips, tricks, best products, things to do before you head out on your trail ride, how to detail and really clean your Jeep once you get home. And we will talk about the easiest ways to clean your undercarriage. What are some tips and tricks that are going to help to break down, especially mud, a little bit faster? Because if you've gone through mud and it's dried and caked on there, it can be a little bit harder to get off. There's places that are hard to reach. So there are some different methods and some different products that are going to help make this job of cleaning it up so much easier. So that is going to be our part 2 that we will go into. And we have a class, detailing class, that is going to be coming up. So excited about that. But for today, I want to talk about why it's important to wash our Jeep, to clean our Jeep, why we need to put in some time to do that once we get home. So mud, salt, sand, any of that can cause a breakdown of parts faster. So this is not only just about your paint, right? Because if you go to the beach, even if you don't feel like your Jeep got dirty, if you have been to the beach and you leave the beach, you have that like grimy film on you, right? Like you can feel it. It's on your skin. It's on anything you took with you to the beach. It's kind of salty because there is salt in the air when you were at the beach, which means even if you don't take your Jeep out and it's covered in mud, or you are out just having a great time, maybe at the sand dunes, even just out on the beach, going to the beach, parking, sitting, enjoying your day, leaving and coming back with that salt and that film, and of course, mud and sand and dirt, that is going to break down your paint as well. So not only are we trying to preserve the outside of our Jeep, so how it looks, it's paint, we want that to last as long as possible, but it actually is going to break down your parts faster. So if you go out, have a great weekend, and come home, you want to get all of that off of those important parts, because you want all your mechanical parts and pieces to last as long as possible. So build up in your wheels. This is especially true with mud, like when you go through mud and then it hardens on there. So you have like chunks of mud in specific places inside your wheels. Build up of that mud can actually cause the weight to shift and to change. So the weight of the wheel, so how the tire is going to rotate, right? Because when we get our tires mounted and balanced, you might notice they put different weights on your wheel to help to balance it so that everything's aligned. There's a balance of rotation. So the weight is going to be right as that tire is rotating. When you add that mud, you wouldn't think like mud's not that heavy, right? But believe it or not, If you have mud that gets caked on your wheels and dries, it can shift the balance. So now you have a weight basically that was added to that wheel. If you do not remove that, that can actually affect how that tire is going to rotate. You can end up with vibration. You can end up with lights coming on your dash. You can end up with sometimes what feels like death wobble because that front balance and weight is off. So I always recommend if you have gone somewhere where you've been in the mud before you even leave the off-road park and you're driving home, if they have a station where you can, hose it down, pressure wash it, make sure to hit your wheels really well and your brakes. If they don't have that on your way home, I recommend one of the first do it yourself kind of spray car wash places you come to, pull in there, even if you don't wash your Jeep, really clean those wheels and brakes before you start driving home because you may get on the road and be like, the front end doesn't feel right. My steering doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. So just remember that is always something to keep in mind, especially if you've had a great weekend, you've been out in a lot of mud. Make sure you spray and hit those wheels and brakes before you start driving to head home. Once you do get home and you're doing this once over cleaning, really make sure to spend some extra time on not only the outside of your wheels, but spraying from the inside into your wheels and making sure that you really hit your brake components as well. Believe it or not, sand, like if you're at the beach, out on sandy terrain, the sand actually, because it is so fine and it's so light, can end up. And what you don't want to happen is sand to get into the brake pads. You don't want any interference when you're using your brakes. So this is not just for mud. This is for dirt and it's for dust and it's for sand. All of those can make their way into rubber components. They can make their way into your braking system and they can make their way into cracks and crevices where there could be long-term issues if you let it just sit there. So again, dirt and a dirty Jeep can hide damage as well. It can hide if there was an impact point. It can hide if anything is leaking. So by going out, enjoying your Jeep, leaving it dirty, which looks awesome, right? And sometimes we're like, oh, we're too tired to wash it. But by doing that, if there is dirt or if there is mud that you have compiled on your Jeep, it can actually hide damage so that you're not going to see that and catch it right away. If again, if you hit belly, if you hit your diffs, if you hit front end, like unfortunately, if you hit a track bar or anything where you could have made front end impact, and anything could be bent or skewed a little bit, or if there's any damage from that impact, that could then affect your steering long term, the drivability of your Jeep. So, part of why cleaning your Jeep and washing it is so important is you're going to be able to see any damage. I know sometimes we're like, oh, I don't want to see those scratches or I don't want to see that dent. Totally get that. But we also want to know exactly what is going on because if we don't see what's going on, we miss something again, especially if you made any impact, hit your front diff or came down hard on your belly or, front end came down hard. If that is dirty and there's mud there, you may miss like a seal that's leaking. You may miss the diff is just seeping a little bit because you can't really tell because of all the mud and dirt that's on there. So there are reasons to make sure you clean and wash your Jeep because this is that maintenance. And it's a preventative maintenance because you can put eyes on it. So if you notice you kind of dinged and twisted or, made some impact and there's a little bit of a little divot in there, knowing anything that is going on with your Jeep can help if you start to notice any problems. Again, I always recommend this because if you have anything leaking, if you have anything damaged, especially in the front end, that could lead to bigger problems. So if you can catch it right away, then you can fix anything that needs to be fixed before it becomes a big problem. So that is another reason you want to make sure that your Jeep is washed and clean. So clean your Jeep and wash it after every adventure. I'm not saying it has to be the next day, especially if it's been a big adventure and you might be tired. Totally understand. But make sure once you get back from your big adventures, your big weekends, take that time, go ahead and wash and clean your Jeep really well. Put eyes on it and make sure it's clean when you put eyes on it so that you're actually getting a true reading of what is going on with your Jeep. And you can notice if anything looks different from before you went on your adventure or your weekend to now that you're home from your adventure or your weekend. So put eyes on all parts. This is clean your Jeep really well. Go around the body, look at your fenders, look at your bumpers, make sure, if you had a wild adventure, make sure the winches still looks like it is connected well, everything's tight. Then kind of make your way down. And I would say start at the front end as you start to make your way down. And, just take a look at your knuckles, your ball joints. Look at everything that is underneath your Jeep. Look at your drive shaft. Look at your belly. I know sometimes it can be hard to get underneath our Jeeps to actually look at them and put eyes on them. Totally get that one. But if you do go out on an adventure and it was a good adventure or a crazy adventure, make sure, even if you have to crawl under there, if you don't have your own crawler to get under there, to scoot yourself in and out, grab a yoga mat, a little more comfortable as you're going underneath your Jeep. But again, make sure that you really put eyes on everything under there so you can see, again, drive shafts, belly, work your way all the way back. If you have aftermarket rock sliders or aftermarket steps, make sure just to double check those, make sure there's no damage, make sure everything is still secured tightly. Believe it or not, when we start doing our aftermarket modifications like aftermarket fenders, things can start to loosen over time, especially with impact. And also, especially if they're caked with mud or anything that gets in there. So just again, remember, check everything. Make sure everything looks tight, everything looks good, and put eyes on all the parts and pieces of your Jeep. I recommend wash and clean your Jeep really well and let it dry all the way, because if you've just washed your Jeep and it's wet, you may miss something that's seeping and you may miss something that's leaking a little bit. So clean it really good, let it sit there and dry, and then go back and get underneath it and put eyes on it and really know what's going on with your Jeep after you had a great adventure and a great weekend. So you need to wash and inspect your Jeep monthly. That is what is recommended. That is what's recommended for your paint. It is recommended because even if we don't take our Jeep off-road and trail riding, this was a great question that I saw come up. Well, if I don't ever take my Jeep trail riding or off-roading, it really shouldn't get dirty. And you're right. It really shouldn't get dirty with mud, but there's pollution, there's exhaust in the air. Depending on where you live, there is going to be particles that are still on the exterior paint of your Jeep, but those will also get up into the front end, underneath belly of your Jeep. So once a month is a great habit to get into to make sure you do a good thorough cleaning of your Jeep and put eyes on it. So this is your way of doing preventative maintenance and helping to prolong the life of your Jeep, your paint, and all those important pieces and mechanics underneath your Jeep. Rubber seals, rubber components, bushings, things like that, the elements really do affect. So you are looking at anything that you see underneath your Jeep that's rubber. You're looking for cracks. Again, you're looking for anything that looks like it's seeping, anything that is dripping, anything that is wet. Make sure there's nothing that's like a major leak going on. You're looking for any damage that has been done, just so that you're aware of what's going on with your Jeep. And again, if you don't trail ride it, still get in that habit once a month doing that thorough cleaning, because sometimes there's trash on the road or junk on the roads. So it's still a really good habit to get into. If you go out for an adventure or a fun weekend, make sure you clean it as soon as you get home. And oh, this is a great one. Yes. So I love that you're going to go out there and look underneath it today. And I always recommend, even if you're taking your Jeep into a shop, they can see a lot more because they can put it up on a lift and really get under there. Um, I'll tell you, I realized how much I had used my belly skids on my Jeep when it was up on the lift. And I was like, ooh, wow. So there's more in there than under there than what I saw climbing under there. But sometimes if they're not really looking, like, I look at it this way. Shop is there, they're going to be doing their job. Everyone is human. I am probably going to be a little bit more nitpicky, maybe a little more detailed, in depth when I'm putting eyes on my own Jeep than someone else might be. And not that that's right or wrong. They're still doing a great job. They're doing their job. But the difference is I want to put eyes on my Jeep. So I know too. And then it's easier for me to catch things if I am out trail riding or if I'm out doing something, because I know what the norm looks like for underneath my Jeep. So that is great. Great belly skid question. So with the belly skids, you do want to check them to make sure that they are still tight. That is something you'll notice, especially if you have the full belly skids. Over time, they will start to loosen as well and need to be retightened up. And you do need to clean underneath the belly really well. I will recommend that every once in a blue moon, you do pull those off to get the junk out from underneath there and then put them back on. That is a big job and a big task, and is not something that is easy. That is not something you need to be doing as maintenance all the time. But you do definitely want to check that that belly skid is not loose. And you can actually go around and look at, depending on what skids you have, if they're welded, if they're bolted, but make sure if they are bolted that it doesn't look like any of the bolts are hanging down lower than any of the other ones. You can actually get under there, put your hands up and kind of try to move it, push on it, make sure you don't hear anything rattling. So everything is still tightened. So hopefully that was helpful. Oh, yes. And the drive up ramps. That is a great, great way to help to get underneath the belly. Um, so that I know sometimes it's hard to get under there to really clean it. We are going to be doing a really good detailing your Jeep video and class. So we'll go over some tips and tricks that you can use that'll help when you get under there to clean your Jeep as well. Today we're kind of talking a little bit more about the why it's important to wash and clean our Jeep. So when you're doing this maintenance and you're putting the time in to clean your Jeep, put your eyes on it, you're basically inspecting it yourself. This helps to keep your Jeep going longer and to catch any issues while they are early before they can kind of turn into something that could be a bigger problem, or that could be a more costly problem because it kind of has led to something else. And again, I know our Jeeps look great dirty, and especially after a fun weekend, it's kind of one of those where it's like, oh, it looks like I took my Jeep out. Totally get that one. But do remember that the long-term longevity of your parts and keeping your Jeep running, and all of those parts going and being able to see everything under there so you know if there's any damage, kind of outweighs the it looks good dirty, because again, we want to run longer so we can continue to get it dirty and to continue to enjoy it. So yeah, you might want to leave it dirty for a day or two so you can feel like, oh yeah, it got so dirty. But make sure you don't let it go very long and you clean it up really good and get under there, put those eyes on it and inspect everything. Because again, it's our Jeep. We want to get to keep playing with it and having fun. So that is our top priority. Try to make sure our Jeep's going to last as long as it can. All right, ladies, let me turn this off. There we go. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. Again, I led into that yesterday with our post on Facebook. I loved hearing from you, amazing ladies, your feedback. It was awesome. And it led right into today when we had a cup of coffee with Kristin and talked about one of the easiest maintenance. I don't want to say easy because getting out there and cleaning our Jeep's pretty tough, right? But an easy maintenance thing we can do ourselves that is going to help to prolong the life of our Jeep because that is our goal. So to keep our Jeep going as long as possible and have as much fun as possible. So thank you for jumping on here on this Wednesday for this quick caffeine and Jeep break together. We are back every Wednesday for a cup of coffee with Kristin, where I pick one quick tip that is going to help you on your Jeep journey. We dive in, we're specific, we talk just about that. And I try to keep it as short as possible, just like you would schedule your coffee break. Think about scheduling this coffee break to join me while we dive in, talk about our Jeep, and enjoy some caffeine together. So, thank you so much, ladies, for jumping on here with me. We have a lot of great stuff coming up from Lady Jeepers. If you enjoyed this and you're not one of our amazing educational members yet, which I see a lot of you ladies on here, jump over to ladyjeepers.com, check out our educational membership, and jump in with us for even more in-depth education for you and your Jeep on this Jeep journey together. So have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. Have an amazing week, and I will see you right back here, 3 p.m. Eastern, next Wednesday, where we can share a cup of coffee and talk Jeeps. So thank you so much, ladies. I will see you again later. Bye, everybody.